gorgeous. Welcome to the 5th season of the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kayla Smith, a holistic and integrative doctor specializing in fertility and hormone health. If you're looking for insights into hormones, fertility, and all things related, you've come to the right place. Tune in weekly as we record amazing experts in the field of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're going to finally put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get and stay pregnant if that's your goal, as well as eliminate all your hormone-related symptoms for good. Are you ready? This season, we're focusing closely on fertility and hormone health with an amazing lineup of expert guests sharing groundbreaking knowledge, bringing you stories and advice that will support you in your journey. We're here to lift your spirits, give you a virtual hug, inspiration, empower you, and we want you to take charge of your fertility and your health. Thank you all so much for tuning in and being amazing listeners. So now, let's get started on your road to transformation. Let's start putting those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together one step at a time.
On today's show, we have Michelle Strong. She's a registered nutritionist for the past 16 years, specializing in fertility. After her own challenges getting pregnant and eventual 2 babies were born, she made it her mission to help others support their bodies with evidence-based strategies to get and stay pregnant. She now works with women all over the world, empowering them to better understand their bodies and create evidence-based plans to improve their chance of bringing home their baby. Today, we're going to talk about getting pregnant faster for those over 35. Now, let's welcome Michelle to the podcast. Hey, Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this conversation. We have a lot of listeners that are over 35 and trying to get pregnant, so this is going to be a great show.
Yes, and I would say most of my clients are also over 35, so it's a good conversation for a lot of our relevant audiences.
Amazing. Well, let's dive into things. Tell us a little bit more about you, how you got into the work that you're doing, and why are you so passionate about that work?
Yeah, so I struggled with my own fertility for quite a few years. Started out thinking, okay, this is going to happen fairly quickly, like most of us probably think so. Ended up in a fertility clinic eventually, went through the cycle monitoring piece and then into IUIs, and nothing was really coming together. I was doing all the right stuff. I'm a nutritionist, by trade. So, eating correctly, I was taking my supplements and I was doing acupuncture, but it just wasn't coming together. And so after, a period of time, we ended up going through an IVF cycle, and I became pregnant from that one embryo we transferred. And while my doctors told me that I was pregnant, I ended up with an ectopic pregnancy from that cycle, and it almost cost me my life. And so I was rushed to surgery to have it removed, my fallopian tube removed, and the pregnancy. And it was after that I took a good amount of time off work, and I really had to sort of step back and kind of figure out how I had landed in this place. Why was I here? And how was I going to change my circumstances? Because it wasn't okay. I was not in a good place at all. And so with taking some time off work, I really started working on a couple different things, one of them being my stress. And for me, I think that was one of the main contributors to what was happening with me. And 5 weeks later, after, coming off of work and dealing with some of that stuff, I was pregnant with my daughter.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's a nice story, but it kind of leads me into the fact that when I was off, I realized, okay, I'm eating good and I'm taking some supplements, but I'm really not tackling this as well as I could be. There's so much more that I could do. And so it led me into putting together my Mind Body Baby, which is basically a platform to help women, to educate women and empower women onto how to conceive easier naturally and how to stay pregnant. Now, obviously there's caveats to all of that, but just supporting women in their quest for a family. So this is where I am now.
I love that. And just to highlight, so you got pregnant with your daughter with one fallopian tube?
One fallopian tube.
Oh my goodness.
Years of trying. And then my son, after one cycle.
Oh my goodness.
Tube. I know. So like
Amazing.
I share that because it's possible, right? It's so possible. And I think that once we really take a top-down approach, like really take a look at what's all going on, you can usually find some gaps or blind spots in your journey. And if there's enough of them, in my mind, if we fill those, we really can make a really great impact on not just your general health, but fertility, right? Really support fertility.
I love that. And that's what I talk about on this podcast and on my platform a lot is there's so many things that you can do to optimize your fertility. And like you said, a lot of times it's a blind spot and you're thinking, well, I've tried everything like you're eating healthy and you're doing the supplements, but there's always something more. And we just have to find what that is and fix it. And then you get pregnant, even with one fallopian tube. So I love that story. That is amazing. And so we're going to talk about getting pregnant faster over 35. And so as we start into this conversation, we have our patient, our clients, they've been trying for at least 3 months if they're at least you say 3 months, but really what the doctor says is 6 months trying over 35. If you're not pregnant, then you need to look and see what could be causing this. So what do you say we need to look at first when we've been trying and it's been at least 3 months?
So, I always do blood work with all of my clients. I feel like that's the one of the biggest blind spots in anyone's journey. Excuse me, if they haven't had their bloods looked at, like a comprehensive panel done and interpreted in a functional way, right? I don't want to compare your bloods against millions of other people. I want to compare your bloods against what is optimal for, your stage in life, the time in your cycle, all this kind of stuff. And so I do bloods with everyone to make sure that we can find and highlight those areas that are potentially a further blind spot. So, like for an example, one blind spot that I see in bloods for women on a very regular basis is elevated fasting insulin. Right? And so if we know that's a problem and we know that elevated insulin impacts other hormones, we know that elevated insulin impacts egg quality. Once we know that that's an issue, we can work to resolve that. And often by resolving that, we actually end up resolving other issues as well. And so all of a sudden, just that one little blind spot being filled has a major cascading impact throughout the entire body. So blood work is the first thing that I do with everyone, for sure.
I love that. And I'm a big fan of looking functionally. Like you said, I'm a functional medicine doctor. So I think it's so important to not just have blood work from your Western medicine doctor who's looking at very different parameters, but having blood work from somebody like you or I so that we can look functionally and look at that person and that person's individual body versus what the basic labs are for that population. So I love that you said that. And then, so you start with blood work and then any other functional labs that you recommend or that you do, or is blood work kind of enough to show those blind spots?
There is definitely other things that you can do. Like I really like doing, vaginal microbiome testing with people. And so, depending on the case, we'll do that. Obviously a detailed, intake, which lasts often almost 2 hours. It's a very long intake to really get to the heart of things. Even just, questions like, were you born C-section? Were you born vaginally? These kind of things people often kind of give me a weird look about, right? Why are you asking me that? But it's that's important information because we know that the gut can play such a big role in fertility. And so just those little clues for me help me sort of understand the total landscape. And I do a lot of work with gut. I think that's important whether you're over 35 or under 35, it doesn't matter. Gut health can play a big role. And so I really like, looking at that. But those are the two main ones that I'm typically looking at the beginning.
I love that. I love that. And so say, somebody's struggling with hormone imbalance. Talk to me about the symptoms and how they would even know this before they do labs. Is there certain symptoms they might see that can kind of trigger and say, okay, this is probably a hormone issue?
I mean, there's a million of them. Obviously sleep disturbances can be them, energy fluctuations, really like crashes through the day, not being able to concentrate, skin rashes, even like vaginal odor, like there's different types of, infections that could be going on. Like the array of symptoms can be quite big: gas, bloating, belching, heartburn, diarrhea, constipation, like lack of concentration. I don't know if I said that, or decision making. Like these could all be signs that things are going on. Even for women who experience like PCOS, you can have male pattern hair growth or acne or like weight gain, around the midsection. Like, so I find like, unless you know what you're looking for, you tend to maybe not be able to spot your own symptoms necessarily and kind of put it together in a bigger picture. But once you see patterns, I've been doing this for 17 years. Once you see a lot of patterns, you get the blood work and the intake, you can really sort of see, I can almost sort of predict what they're going to say in a sense, because I know what to expect.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a lot of symptoms that could be related, right? Like, a lot of people are experiencing fatigue, and for me, that's a big one. It speaks to obviously hormones and diet and quality of sleep. It could speak to things like thyroid and like, you know what I mean? So it's quite vast. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, for sure. And I like to point out too, and you mentioned so many symptoms that so many people say are normal, and they just think, well, this is how it is. I'm a woman. I'm going to experience these symptoms, or even a man. Like we've just normalized feeling crappy for so long. And so I feel like any symptom you have that is disrupting your life and that is annoying to severe is your body's way of saying like, there's something wrong here. You need to take a deeper look.
Yes. And I should point out too that like, when we do intakes, I find that some people aren't even aware they have certain symptoms until I bring it up. Yes. Or especially around the topic of stress, we get, the conversation kind of goes like this. How would you rate your stress on a scale of 10? Well, maybe like a 5. And then I go through the list of, can you concentrate? Can you make decisions? How's your energy? Sleep, blah, 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 blah. How's your diet? And they're like, oh, okay. I didn't realize. And it kind of leads me to say to them, sometimes we don't know we're stressed because that just feels so normal because we've been living in this chronic state of stress for so long. And so I find during the intakes, even though, they didn't initially come in with, oh, I'm so stressed, it often comes up in an intake. And then you may see those, labs come up, through that show some of that stuff. And then all of a sudden we paint the picture of this is a stressed person, and stress can certainly impact getting pregnant.
Yes, I completely agree. And it's so interesting to me that you said that, because the same thing happens in my practice. 9 times out of 10, my patient will say, I'm not stressed. Then we do some labs and they're all in adrenal fatigue. I promise, like 9 out of 10 people that I test are in adrenal fatigue. And then we have to go back and have that conversation. You might not feel stressed because this is normal to you, but the labs tell a different picture. So I love that you said that. That's so interesting and so true. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit more about just some common things so let's go back. So you said you run blood work on most people, and then usually you'll find things like high A1C, but anything else that you're seeing on that blood work that you say, okay, this is probably what we need to fix and optimize in order for you to get pregnant, especially if you're over 35.
Yeah, I'm running A1C and fasting insulin and glucose. So those ones tend to be, obviously, if one's up, they can all be up. Not necessarily, I guess so. And so another one that I really find is often low, it would be ferritin. If I couldn't tell you a percentage, but a good percentage of my clients have low ferritin levels. So that's something that we obviously work on, to support them with, whether it be lifestyle, nutrition, supplementation, that kind of stuff. And then another one that I really love, which is sort of my secret weapon with blood, which is, gaining more ground now, is your HSCRP. I find that, when I was first starting out, I would tell people I was running that and they'd be like, oh, I didn't think about that. And now it's being run more often, which is great. Which is a measurement of inflammation. And so, I'm working with someone right now and her inflammation levels are really high. And we're just sort of going down the list of where could this be coming from and trying to address everything to bring it down. And we've recently got new bloods done after 4 months and they've come right down, which is amazing. So we've figured it out somewhere, but obviously you can't pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. But that's another one that I find for a lot of people can be elevated.
Gotcha. And do you find too, whenever you find that elevated, that you will run a gut test and see that it's inflammatory because of a leaky gut? Is that one thing that you kind of look for, or no?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I find that, again, once we have the conversation about gut, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe that is a thing. And right. So all of a sudden, putting them on a gut protocol, supporting their GI with potentially supplementation. And often a lot of those symptoms are resolved. And so again, as the CRP, we can't pinpoint exactly where the issue is coming from, but there's a couple of big offenders, the gut being one of them, that I am often looking towards as a driver of the inflammation that may be in the body.
For sure. And we'll talk practical tips in the second half about what we can do to optimize fertility and lower inflammation, because I know inflammation is such a root cause of so many different illnesses and diseases, especially fertility conditions. So we'll talk about that. But before we do that, I want to switch gears and talk more about our male partners, our husbands. Anything they need to be looking at as far as testing? Do you run the blood work on them as well? And any additional tests that you think are important?
Yeah, so in the program that I run, it's obviously they're 50% of the equation. So it is, obviously very important. I tend to work with the women predominantly. So I do have a package that gets sent out. Here's the blood work that you can get done. Here's the functional levels that it should be in. Here's, your sperm testing, what it should read. And, if it's not where you want it to be, here's X, Y, and Z things that you can do to support your body. And so that's the kind of stuff that, it's not as in depth as what I would go in with a woman. In my particular practice, I find that most people are coming to me already knowing that sperm health is okay. I don't know if it's just the group I'm attracting, but they already have done blood work or sperm testing. And a lot of the times when we look at it, it is in a decent range. So not that it's not important to support even further, but I tend in my practice to be working more on the female side of things.
Gotcha. And I definitely agree that semen analysis is the minimum that a male should do when he's struggling with infertility. But like you said, a lot of them have already done that and they kind of know they've ruled out that's the cause. And so it's really focusing on the woman and figuring out what's going on with her. So I completely agree there.
Yeah. In my practice, everyone's visiting someone at a different stage of the fertility journey. So it absolutely needs to be ruled out. And of course, there's other testing that can be done aside from that, initial analysis. But, once we have that and if it looks okay and we run the blood and that looks okay. And I've got, I'm obviously doing a small intake with him as well. Is he doing X, Y, and Z? What's body fat percentage? Because we know that can make an impact as well. Smoking, alcohol intake, activity, sleep, stress, diet. Once we know, if those things are running fairly smoothly, then I'm kind of in my practice shifting back to the female. And I find too that, whatever I do with her is going to be trickling down to him a lot of times as well. So if she's, we're changing her stuff, diet wise, and supplement wise, a lot of that is being trickled down to him. So he's benefiting obviously as well too.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about those practical tips I mentioned earlier on what we can do to optimize our fertility. So we'll be right back.
Hey y'all, it's Dr. Kayla here. I hope you are loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back shortly, but first, let's hear a word from our amazing sponsor. Trust me, it's something you'll definitely want to hear, especially if you're passionate about fertility and hormone health. Did you know we have our exclusive herbal tea crafted especially for fertility, hormones, and reproductive health? This isn't just any tea. It's a nurturing blend of 5 potent herbs, each chosen for their unique ability to support fertility and hormone balance. Imagine the benefits of red raspberry, nettles, calming chamomile, antioxidant-rich green tea, white peony, and the delightful rooibos vanilla, all in one soothing cup. This delicious, nutritious tea is perfect for starting your morning or relaxing in the evening. So why wait? Head on over to our website, www.hormonepuzzlesociety.com/fertility-tea to support your fertility journey in the most natural and enjoyable way. Now let's get back to our insightful episode and continue our hormone puzzle journey together.
Hey, Michelle, welcome back.
Hello.
Let's talk practical tips. What are your top 5 things that we can do to optimize our fertility over 35?
Okay, well, we already said it, but I just really need to say it again. Blood work or some testing at least at the beginning, and have that optimized, or not optimized, but interpreted from a functional perspective. That is the biggest blind spot I usually see. And so then the next, there's a lot of things, but of course, stress plays a big role in women's lives, whether it be, our demanding schedules or work, or even, the fertility journey is very stressful. It can be stressful for a lot of people. So, I would say an understanding of your stress, because I will say for myself, I knew that stress wasn't good for you, but I really didn't have a clear understanding if I was stressed. And if you don't know if you're stressed or not, you can't do anything about it. And, coming years and years later, I can now look back and be like, oh my God, I had no idea really. Right. And I was in this holistic space. Yeah. And so really having a clear understanding of your stress levels. And then once you know that, you can do something about it. So practical tips for stress management: you need to find something that's not being forced upon you. Mm-hmm. What I mean by this is I would see my naturopath and she'd be like, oh, you're stressed, you should do X, Y, and Z. And I'd be like, I don't want to do that. It doesn't sound good to me. And I felt like I almost resisted because I was being told to do something that I really didn't want to do at all. And so I need you to find something that makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. So whether that be a walk, or it means listening to music or journaling, don't do something just because someone says do it. Do something and so my routine is I get up earlier than my family and I turn my red light therapy on. I put on binaural beats really quietly, and I do breath work for 10 minutes. And for myself, this is I feel like, okay, I am doing something really good for my body to start the day. I'm starting it off with intention and with calmness. And then following that, I have 4 affirmations that I do for myself. And then I get on with the day. Obviously I'm active and all that kind of stuff, but you really need to find something that is supportive. And I will say, I certainly have times where I'm still stressed and I'm not managing things well, or it's all too much. And I, like everyone else, struggle to recognize it sometimes and to change it up. So don't be so hard on yourself, right? No one has it down perfectly, but stress is another really big one that I find impacts a lot of people, so much so that I have designated a huge amount of my programming to stress management support and all the different tools that have been shown in literature to be supportive of increasing chance of getting pregnant. Another tip. Okay. So I really am passionate about reducing environmental toxins in our environment, in our life, in our house, everything. There's so many things you could do. It's like, where do I start? Like, change your like skincare routine as the first thing. That's probably skincare and what you cook on are usually the first two things that I suggest people change. So don't use like non-stick pans, do like a cast iron, which I have, or a stainless steel, which I have, and then maybe ceramic. Like change out all the potions and lotions. Don't put, your antiperspirants and your perfumes on. There's other options. Like I literally make my own face cream and it's so easy. You just have to melt, as a practical tip, melt shea butter and almond oil and a bit of coconut oil and some essential oils over a double boiler. Let it cool in the fridge and then whisk it up with like a beater whisk.
Yeah.
And it gets fluffy.
Ooh.
And then you just keep it in your fridge to store it. And I just take a little bit out at a time in a little jar and keep it in my bathroom. So I use an organic rosehip oil and that on my face. And there's so few ingredients. There's no toxins there at all. So removing what you can from your life, I think, is really important in terms of environmental toxins, because we know that impacts our endocrine system, inflammation, all that kind of stuff. So super important in my mind. What else? We've talked about it, but I guess because it's so important, like getting a handle on your gut health is also really, really important. Looking at the list of symptoms, am I gassy, bloated, am I belching? Do I have heartburn? Those are the common ones, but, could it be related that you have allergies? Could be related to gut health, achy joints, skin rashes and eczemas, right? Like all of that could be related to your gut. So it's really kind of digging a bit deeper than those high level symptoms that we're used to having. Removing food sensitivities, known food sensitivities that you have. Like if you sort of suspect that you might be sensitive to eggs because every time you eat it, you don't feel that great, then maybe this is your sign to remove any of those foods that, feel suspect to you.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I completely agree with all of that. And so was that where you finished? Was there any other tips you wanted to mention? Sorry, I was just going to jump in with a thought, but yeah.
Like, in regards to gut health or anything else?
Any other tips?
Like supplementation, I think, can play a really big role in a fertility journey. There's some great research on it. And so I think that finding someone to look at your labs and your testing and to be able to supplement properly with quality nutrients, I think is really, really powerful. It's not supposed to take the place of nutrition, because that's been my background. I'm obviously very passionate about that, but it's meant to augment it and kind of take it to that next level. And I think that if you can find someone that knows what they're doing from a supplementary standpoint and is not just going to put you on everything everything, I think you can really take some leaps and bounds with that as well. So finding someone who can interpret labs and then put a plan together based on those labs, I think is really, really key here as well.
For sure. And I love to point out that supplements are called supplements because they supplement what you're getting through your diet. And so they're not meant to replace your diet. They're meant to fill in the gaps and the holes. And yes. I think that's a great point, that you want to find a practitioner that can look at your labs and customize your supplements based on what the labs say that you need, instead of just saying, let's take everything that we see on Instagram or that another practitioner has recommended. I think customizing it is super important. Yeah. And I love what you mentioned too about stress. And that was my issue as well. I think a lot of times when we're in it, we don't realize that we're stressed. And my stress was, I was a personal trainer and I was really skinny and I thought that was healthy. So I was stressing my body out in that regards, thinking this is normal. I'm healthy. I'm skinny. I'm fit, but I wasn't I wasn't fit for fertility. And so I think that that's a good thing to say, like, okay, let's look at what is driving your stress, and are you stressed, and what do the labs say? So I love that you say that.
Funny enough, I just put out a reel today talking about under eating for fertility and how that is a stressor on the body. Mm-hmm. And so, it's impossible to give a recommendation on how much extra food to, so I just said in the reel, increase your diet, your calories by at least 10%. Start there, right? Just to get in more of that good stuff. And when I mean calories, I don't mean, the bag of chips or the chocolate, like, obviously protein, quality fats, and complex carbs would be my recommendation there.
For sure. For sure. And we didn't really touch on nutrition, but any tips around nutrition from a nutritionist?
Yes. Sometimes I hesitate to talk about it because it seems so obvious that we have to change our nutrition. We've heard it till we're black and blue.
Yeah.
But I still always find things to change within my clients' nutrition. So, I guess, what's really fatty right now is eating more protein. So, I mean, probably anyone who's listening to this have heard to eat more protein. So yes, making sure you have enough protein in the day is really important. But I think, we still get hung up on fats. Mm-hmm. People I find not necessarily afraid of them, just don't really know what to do with them. Mm-hmm. And so examples of how to incorporate good quality, fertility friendly fats would be, chia pudding, like, so the chia seeds, and there's coconut cream in that. That could be in it with hemp seeds and berries. That would be an option for a snack, which is actually what I just had. Obviously you could have, a slice of sprouted grain toast with mashed avocado, and a bowl of homemade soup with some olive oil drizzled over it once it's already plated. Things like that. Squeeze some olives in mid-afternoon with some nuts and some veggies and whatever for a snack. It's ways to include it throughout the day that don't need to feel hard. And I just find that for whatever reason, fat trips people up. But fat, we know, is incredibly important for so many processes, including supporting fertility and increasing actually like getting pregnant and live birth rate. So increasing your fat would be another one, I think.
I love that. And one thing that really helped me that I like to point out to my patients and clients, and I'm sure you do the same, is write down one whole day of what you're eating and really look at it. Are you under eating? Are you overeating? Are you eating way too much protein? Are you not getting enough fat? Like, write it down and look at it in black and white, because I think a lot of us, myself included, we under or overestimate what we're eating.
Definitely. And, treats can squeak in really easily. And I say that from I do have a sweet tooth.
Same.
And tomorrow I will actually be putting out another reel on like hormone friendly homemade Easter eggs, right? Mm-hmm. They're like yummy little bounty bars, healthy. So, you can find ways to incorporate, treats, but when you write it down, you're like, oh, that there was a lot there that day. And, that's not always bad if they're quality options, but, if they're not, then it's something to really, I think, rein in, especially if, there's some hormonal conditions going on.
I love that. And I'll have to look for your reel for tomorrow. Love it. And I actually just made one for healthy cookie dough. And oh my goodness, the best protein rich cookie dough. But then I'm like, you can't eat the whole bowl. You have to only eat a serving of it.
Yeah. And then you just freeze the rest into little portions.
Exactly. I love it. Well, Michelle, I could talk to you all day, but we do have to start to wrap up. So before we do that, first, I just want to say thank you for being here. Such a great conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And before we wrap up, just want to do a few things. First, can we play a little game so our audience gets to know you personally? Would you be open to that?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So how it works is I'm just going to ask you a series of questions. I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
You ready? Okay. Favorite food?
Pizza.
Least favorite food?
Spinach.
Favorite animal?
Panda bear for sure.
I love pandas. And least favorite animal?
I mean, something gross, like a spider, or I guess that's an insect, like something rodent-y or insect-y. Yeah.
And favorite vacation spot?
Greece for sure. Yeah. Traveled to Greece in my honeymoon for 2 weeks, and that was amazing.
Amazing. And then when something or someone you love?
I mean, I have to say it, my kids, right? My kids are the center of my universe. After many hard years of trying to get them here, I mean, someone would kill me if I didn't say them as
right. Me too. Oh, they're the best. I love it. Well, tell everybody where they can find you and learn more about working with you.
Yeah, my Instagram handle is at mymindbodybaby. Same with my website, mymindbodybaby.com. If you have any questions, you can email me, michelle@mymindbodybaby.com.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, any final thoughts? What's one piece of advice you want to leave our audience with?
Okay. So if you're wondering if you're stressed and you have either an Oura Ring or a Apple Watch, you can track your HRV on that. And you can look to see what your heart rate variability is. And it's a nice way to sort of get a glimpse into what your nervous system might be doing. Anything over 50 is sort of that bare minimum of what we'd be looking for to sort of, anything under 50, we'd be sort of questioning what, your stress levels and if there is a little bit too much going on in your life. So it's a fun little hack. I have an Oura Ring, but a lot of people have the Apple Watch, which you could track HRV with as well.
Amazing. And I love HRV. And just to reiterate for the audience, you want your number to be high. The higher, the better.
Higher, the better.
I love it. I love it. Well, amazing, Michelle. Thank you again for being here.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
And thank you for listening to the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Hey, hang on a second. Before you go, I've got some fantastic free resources waiting for you over at our website. You can find that at www.hormonepuzzelesociety.com. You'll find everything from a fertility meal plan, a cycle optimizing quick start guide, even a pregnancy meal plan. Plus, there's masterclasses and blog posts from myself and leading experts in the fields of fertility, hormones, and nutrition, all designed to support you on your journey. And I wish there had been something like this when I was going through my 2 years of unexplained infertility, but there just wasn't. That's why I put all of these resources together for you. So make sure you go and check these out and make the most of the support that I've arranged for you. And here's a little secret. These are the same strategies and foods that helped me conceive not once, but twice, even after my doctor said that I couldn't. So I know that these things work. Make sure that you take advantage of that. And I can't wait for you to be our next success story. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember to visit our website at www.hormonepuzzlesociety.com for the show notes of today's episode. And if you've enjoyed our time together, please subscribe and leave us a review. I so appreciate you and thank you for being a valued listener. See you on the next episode of the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L E Podcast. Take care and lots of love.